we'll call the, Wednesday, February 28th, 6 p.m., 2024, and this is the Technology Commission. We will call to order and do the roll call.
Chair Greg Stroud.
Present.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Present.
Dale Webler.
Present.
Laura Galusha.
Present.
James Rayberger.
Present.
G. Serrano is excused. Andy Pelkey.
Present.
John Farney.
Present.
Luke Core is excused. And that's it.
All right, we'll now stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is a citizen comment period. We have no citizens in our audience, so we'll move on to the third item, which is the review of and approval of the meeting minutes from December 14th.
I make a motion to approve as written.
Jim motions. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Alderman. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved as written. Next item is the Market Drive HEMA Assessment Management System and Data Software Licensing and Conversion Services from Catalyst, which there are two attachments in your packet tonight. One is for, one covers two items on our agenda.
It has to be noted that Common Council did approve the purchase and the installation and the contracts and the funds transfers for this at the last Common Council meeting on Wednesday for it. So normally we do the evaluation and do a motion to recommend before it comes up to Council. But there's a need for immediacy on this, so it was presented to the Council by the Director of Administration. Last Wednesday it was approved, so this is more procedural for us just to keep everyone in the flow of what exactly is going on with assessment management. We do have a new assessor, in case if anyone did not know that already. It's Forward Appraisal, and part of their contract is actually to have Market Drive software be the assessment management system that they will use, because this is the one that they're very, very much familiar with on it. And it's in their contract that we have to obtain that software. They won't sign the contract until we actually obtain the software. We are been without an assessor basically since December 31st, when we fired the previous appraiser, Accurate Assessor, on it. And actually, we did not renew their contract for the new year, and then went with the new appraisers. So it's rather important to get this up as quickly as possible for them, just to have the new appraiser be as successful as possible, and they will then turn around and be able to sign their contract because all of the requirements have now been. Traditionally, the City of Franklin has used an outsourced assessor's office that was responsible for their own assessment management system. The choice to outsource the department was largely based upon, one, difficulty finding a certified and a skilled assessor that would work one and only one municipality. Assessor firms could contract out services with multiple municipalities, leveraging skills and local knowledge of regulation amongst multiple pools of revenue, which is why you see very few communities actually have their own assessor on-sourced. Most of them actually turn around and do outsource this to an assessment consulting company. Assessment needs may be heavy some years and lighter in others. Productivity can be increased by leveraging talent and skills in areas where resources are most needed. Outsourcing frees up municipal headcount and does not require the community to pay employee benefits. This can be more cost effective. And assessment is a highly specialized skill that requires knowledge in the latest tools, regulations, and changes to the real estate market. What is CAMA? You may have actually heard this in the past. It's Computer Assisted Mass Appraisal. It is a modeling technique that is an alternative to assessing each property individually and ensures greater uniformity for similar properties. Assessment firms would contract out services to multiple municipalities, leveraging the skills and local knowledge and regulations amongst multiple revenues. Computer modeling also allows for the importation of large amounts of historical data and generates estimated appraisals based upon prevailing market conditions within the area. And CAMA uses specific computer algorithms used to determine property assessment value. The choice of algorithm may be regulatory based or a decision made by the experience of the assessor on what would most accurately represent the prevailing market conditions in the area. And like most elements of data analysis, the choice of modeling technique is both an art and a science. The goal is to produce data-driven decisions that can be statistically relevant. Several years ago, when we still were on MS Govern for our ERP platform, they were heavily into CAMA. The convention was probably 95% based upon talking about CAMA and assessment, and only 5% based on actually talking about their parcel management software for it. So there's a lot of focus out there in the field right now, and a lot of software has gone over to CAMA instead of turning around and having the assessor do individual property assessments each and every single year. It just is far more practical. The City of Franklin's history of assessment systems. The City of Franklin has not maintained an assessment management system. The implementation and maintenance of the CAMA, or assessment management system, was the responsibility of the outsourced assessor. Tyler Technologies, I've been here now for 8 years. They were here all the way for the last 2 years. They started when Peggy Steno came on board. Tyler Technologies was the firm utilized a local copy of the Universe assessment management system that was based on Pervasive SQL. Pervasive SQL is based on Btrieve, which often works well for unstructured information that must be versioned on multiple iterations. Pervasive SQL is able to perform standard SQL queries on the property tables, which gives the advantage of an RDBMS when using unstructured data. Each year, a new database was created for each and every single assessment role and was rolled over, and a new one was started each year. Local data was exported and placed into a Universe CAMA system that was hosted off-site at Tyler Technologies in their cloud. The system was a hybrid between local and off-site management. And data exports were frequently performed between Milwaukee County with their Laredo system, MS Govern, which at that time was our ERP system, and then eventually BSNA, which is the new ERP system. Accurate Assessor came on board in February of 2021. Accurate Assessor replaced Tyler Technologies as the assessment firm responsible for the generation of the city's assessment role. The data was exported from Universe and placed into the Prolorum CAMA system, which was used by Accurate. Prolorum is an assessment management system that is entirely cloud-based. Warning. This ran on the Microsoft Azure cloud and tightly coupled with Azure Microsoft SharePoint. All CAMA data modeling was performed off-premise and performed in the Azure cloud. The city did not have direct access to any of the data and had to entirely go through the assessment firm. In 2022 and 2023, data exports of the assessment from Prolorum to the GCS LandNav system created major issues in the calculating of property tax billing statements. Major delays were encountered with both corrupt data preventing the importing of the assessment roll into the billing management system. This caused significant delays in the generation of property tax statements. If you got your bills late, that was why. Due to the significant regulatory omissions and oversight, Accurate Assessor was terminated in December 2023. Integrity of the assessment role currently now is in question. Data was received from Accurate Assessor in Excel and PDF exports. They did not give it to us in any form of a database export. That is right now we're going back to them and requiring them to give it into an RDBMS format. If they do not do it, this most likely will result into a lawsuit. In January of 2023, the City of Franklin Common Council reviewed RFQs and RFPs for multiple assessment firms. Part of the contract was recognized that historical data from Universe, Tyler Technologies, and Prolorum Accurate Assessor will need to be heavily interrogated for accuracy and relevancy. The new assessment role would need to be imported into a completely different CAMA assessment management system. This would need to follow all current Department of Revenue regulations. Forward Appraisal was awarded the contract to become the new outsourced assessment office for the City of Franklin. Part of the contract of the City of Franklin would need to be purchase a licensed copy of Market Drive to hold the assessment role. Market Drive is the product currently being used by Forward Appraisal for other municipalities that they also host, and it is the assessment product that they have the greatest familiar with and are requiring it as part of their service contract. With this is going to be coming some changes in IT responsibilities, because before it was up to the assessor to support and maintain and run the entire system, back it up. We didn't have to do a thing. Well, that day has now changed. The City of Franklin IT department will be fully responsible for hosting the Market Drive system and will be placed on SQL databases. A dedicated VMware virtual machine will be configured for the hosting of the CAMA application. Forward Appraisal will have remote access to it via the virtual machine. The IT department will be responsible for upgrading the OS and the application, as well as making backups and tape archives of all databases. Maintaining the assessment data will be kept locally, and archiving will be done entirely using existing theme archiving processes, which we use for every other application that we're currently using. It is a Windows-based application. The assessor's office is responsible for the quality and the integrity of the data. The IT department does not understand the assessment process or the prevailing regulations surrounding the calculations of property valuation. The accuracy and relevancy of the valuation is the responsibility of the assessor's office. Maintaining the data locally will ensure that all assessment data is maintained in an RDBMS and is relationally structured. We also will know what copies we have and what version of it we will have, because it's not being stored in a cloud or in some unstructured database format. A little bit of history on Market Drive. Market Drive is the CAMA assessment management system used by over 50% of the municipalities in Wisconsin. I received a spreadsheet. It's actually 83% of the municipalities in Wisconsin. The original product was developed in Wisconsin and is in full conformance with all state of Wisconsin and Milwaukee County regulations, which is extremely important because a lot of software can be made, like BSNA was made out in Michigan and is very Michigan focused on a lot of the regulation and compliance. Here, this software was actually built here in Wisconsin, so it's very regulation forward to Wisconsin regulations, hence it's got really, really tight market penetration. Market Drive is a Microsoft.NET 4.5 application that uses a Microsoft SQL RDBMS. This is direct alignment with the current City of Franklin Strategic Technology Plan. The architecture is a two-tier system that consists of a FIT.NET application server and a Microsoft RDBMS. It is possible to create a single-tier architecture by placing the application server and an SQL on the same VM. For smaller communities, Market Drive is sold, believe it or not, with a Microsoft Access database. For larger communities and enterprise licensing, an SQL RDBMS is required. Market Drive was purchased by Catalyst. That's a company's name, who has declared the software to be end of life. Due to the market penetration in Wisconsin, the software is still being fully supported. However, Catalyst is trying to move new customers onto the Patriot Properties cloud-based system. To this day, there's very, very few companies that are municipalities that are actually on Patriot Properties. The City of Waukesha is like one of the only ones in the region. Everyone else is pretty much on Market Drive. Catalyst purchased GCS, which used to be in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and integrated it into their Cloud Advanced Government Management Solutions suite. The product is now known as LandNav and is the hosting platform for Milwaukee County for all property tax management, treasury collection, and reporting. Catalyst purchased GovTech escrow payment solutions and also integrated this into the Advanced Government Management Solution Suite. All escrow payments are now fully automated and no longer requires an actual import file and synchronization of property tax keys. It is expected that Market Drive importation of assessment data into LandNav will be seamless. This will be the end of the year when we do the billing process, as this is already being done by Milwaukee County municipalities already on the system. This should resolve most import issues encountered by the end of the year, transferring data from a third-party assessment system. Catalyst support should have full knowledge of the data structures between the assessment management system and the property collection system. It's owned by the same company. I fully expect it. And in transferring data to the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, if fully automated, can be done within Market Drive. Current issues that we have, but now been signed off by the Common Council. Catalyst requires onboarding services as part of the requirement of sale for the software. How much is very variable between community to community. Catalyst support and forward appraisals will be responsible for analyzing all records received from Tyler and accurate assessors, identifying data anomalies, and performing the ETL, extract, transform, and load into the new Microsoft database. Reporting does not use Microsoft reporting services. Legacy nature of the product is demonstrated where Crystal Reports runtime is used for the generation of all management reports. City still owns an SAP Crystal Reports tool back from MS Govern, because Crystal Reports was the reporting tool in MS Govern. And the IT department will not be responsible for the modification of any of the Crystal Report templates on it. That'll either be Catalyst or that will be Accurate Assessor. Forward Appraisal. And the GIS department has experience with Market Drive integration. They're currently using a series of scripts at New Berlin, because our GIS department works 2 days here and then 2 days at New Berlin. That may be useful for the importing of parcel information from ArcGIS. Integration with the BSA and the building management module for permits is still unknown. Permit information may be just derived from regular reports. It's expected that the Common Council will approve the funding and execution of the contracts, which they already did. Normally, as I said, this is a multi-step process, which was circumvented because of the need to turn around and onboard forward appraisals as quickly as possible for it. And the Catalyst order request form was the actual contract for it. So they didn't even go through our typical creating a boilerplate and then having their contract as an addendum contract to it and subservient to the boilerplate contract. Instead, they accept the contract for Catalyst as is. We are looking for any Q&A questions that I might be able to answer to the best of my ability on it. I do know Andy does have experience in the field for it. He might be able to answer a few more of the technical questions for it. Is there any question about software and why we're doing it and how we're going to be managing it going forward?
Yeah. Just looking at the contract, a couple of things. One is I didn't see in the contract any paragraph relating to ownership of the software should Catalyst declare bankruptcy. Not that it would, but who owns the software if they go down?
That's a great question. That's normally why we turn around and don't override the boilerplate contract for it. I would assume, and that's an assumption, that we would have to probably address some of that in court for it, that it would be the city that is the owner of it. Normally, Mark Liberta was very keen on this, that we put in the contract that we owned the copy of the source code.
Yeah.
That if they went bankrupt, we actually have a copy of the actual source code for it. The answer to that is I don't know, because it isn't in the contract. You are absolutely correct, but we will be in the same boat with 83% of the other municipalities.
Yeah, I would say that we only have a license to use the software, and it's an annual renewable license. And so if they go bankrupt, our ability to relicense that software would fall into some court place. I mean, it'll still function forever as long as you give it a valid licensing code. So the question is who can generate a licensing code?
Do you know that you need to apply a new licensing code every year?
Yes. Licensing code has an expiration date built into it. So if they were to go bankrupt, 84% of the state would be asking the exact same question. Where do we get our licensing codes for next year?
And then the second question is, in the last couple of pages of the contract, I see that there are some superscripts that apparently reference notes, which don't appear to be in the contract anymore. Do you happen to know what they're referring to?
Can you give an example?
I do not know.
Where are you, page 17, 18?
If you look at page 18 on the top there, under costs, you'll see $3.25 per hour. Is that squared?
Per square hour.
Yeah.
Per square hour.
Or, I mean, I'm not sure what they would be referencing here, but I would think that we want to have
I will state from a personal statement, the cost that we have for the onboarding and conversion is extremely high. That was even addressed by the council, because part of the fees for forward appraisal of their first year was to work on, all right, take this mess that we have of trying to get data from two different assessment management systems, and one, we're not even sure we got all of it from stuff that was in the Microsoft Cloud on it, and we know their assessment procedures were wrong on some of this stuff, so they got a hot mess in doing the actual data cleaning up and determining what is the real assessment value for that particular property. And they're probably going to have to go back to old assessment rolls, re-roll the CAMA evaluation procedures on it for multiple years, and try to get some baseline on what is the realistic property value for that, and just how far off is the one that they were paying in this last tax roll to what they estimate the real assessment value actually is for that company.
How do they know how far back to go? I mean, where's the
5 years
data?
is what they have now asked the director of finance from the information on land. So they want what was the actual assessment roll for the last 5 years, and they'll start that as the basis of, all right, here's what we charged people. This is legitimately what the assessment roll is. Now the question is all right, when Accurate Assessor was actually doing the assessment process of it, the evaluations, did they do it accurate? And were there glaring omissions in what they actually did? So they got a good amount of data scrubbing to turn around and do that. And that fee was actually put into Forward Appraisal's contract for it. There is some overlap now, and that the price is quite high, but they kind of got us a little bit over the barrel right now, where we need the software. We need it like now. We can only get it from one company and one company only. And with that, they say if you buy the software, you have to buy our onboarding process for it as well, or otherwise we can't technically support the software for you. If we just sold you the software and you imported the data, then you come back to us with problems, we can't answer any of your questions. There is some legitimacy in that, but I also realize the price that they have for this data conversion and process for what it really is extremely high.
So is there some endpoint mentioned in any contract with, I guess, Forward that that you'll have or Market Drive, yes, it's software, but with the assessment firm that you'll have clean data at the end of this? Or is this something where they'll go, yeah, it's wrong, you got to fix it, you got to clean it up, you have to pay us more to do that?
It's that's outside of IT.
Yes.
That's a business contract.
Yep.
And perhaps Michelle Eichmann can speak. probably saw all the different contracts
I can answer that
go
question.
across it. They probably have some of that addressed directly in the business.
I can answer that. So the software has a suite of quality assurance, quality management, right? And so you run a report and it'll tell you you've got these problems with stuff, and the list of problems is probably quite long coming out of what we got from our prior assessor. Some of those things you can just look at the quality reports and say, okay, I'm going to go fix this, right? You can just do it right then and there, right? Other things require you to go out to the property and observe something. What is in the system has to match what's on the ground, right? And so that's the part that's really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Board appraisal is going to, it might take them more than a year because they're in, they're starting, the assessment process starts in August 1st. It doesn't start on January 1st, August 1st. And so we're hiring them 5 months behind schedule. So we put them in a position where they're 5 months behind schedule, have to produce a roll, which we can then generate taxes on to get paid. So they might take more than a year's elapsed time to get to the long list of problems that the software is going to identify right off the bat. But that stuff they can do in-house. It's the stuff where you have to put boots on the ground that's going to be a problem. Because the owner might be like, I don't want to let you in my house. There's all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Besides, it takes a lot of time. So in the contract, there is something that states that they are to visit 10% of the properties every year. 10% will get visited this year, 10% will get next year, 10% the year following. And it may not seem very, very much, but that 10% is a lot more than what was done before. I've been telling the city that they should scrap the paying for office hours and instead pay for boots on the ground, because according to the prior assessor, Mark Link, we haven't done a full walkthrough of every property in the city for 40 years. That's an ungodly amount of time. And people do work, and they don't take out permits, and they take out permits, and they get dropped, and so that there's a gap between what's really there and what's really being acknowledged for the purpose of appraising it for tax purposes. So anyway, make a long story short, there's a lot of quality control stuff that's going to come out. A lot of stuff is going to be easy to identify right up front, but correcting it will require, in some cases, boots on the ground, but we're only getting 10% boots on the ground from this contractor every year. If we wanted to pay more, we could get more. But like having them do a full walkthrough of every property would be $1 million. So obviously we can't afford $1 million.
So another business question, but they found that that through this data mess, we've been overcharging on a particular property by 20%.
Yep.
Some business
Yeah.
entity.
Yeah.
And there's been people
business
who
entity come back
complain
and
on
say,
the
look,
assessment, yes.
not just this year,
Yes.
but now for the past 5 years, and maybe even longer than your data goes back, maybe 10, 20 years, I want a refund.
There's a law that covers this. There's two kinds of corrections. There's one called omitted property, where you built a garage and it wasn't on the roll, and we're going to go back and collect for that. That goes back 2 years. That's the law. So it's 2 years. If it was put there 10 years ago, too bad. You can only collect 2 years. And there's another one called a palpable error, where it's some mathematical error. Something's wrong with our valuation, and for that you can only go back 1 year. So they could say, I want to go back 5 years, but the law only allows this 1 or 2 year, depending on the type of circumstance. It's somewhat unfair. But
Thank you. Any other questions? I have more questions, but I don't want to.
Sure, just a couple of quick ones. How many users of the system?
I believe it's licensed for 10.
And then you said the client is also a thick client that needs to be installed in.
Right, they're going to be basically doing the stuff directly on the server.
And then do you foresee any hidden IT costs, like adding capacity to your VMware farm or to your backup and recovery platform or anything?
I'd be surprised if the data is 300 megabytes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
300 gigabytes for it. Just looking at the size of what Universe was for all of those years and what this is, we've got plenty of capacity on the VMware farm to turn around and accommodate.
Okay.
the application does not use a lot of resources. You might say it's 3 gig, 5 gig, 10 gig, but most of that's like photos, and the photos aren't stored in the database, so the database itself is fairly efficient. It doesn't take a lot of resources.
And then just from a day-to-day maintenance of the system, doesn't sound like anything special that you or your staff will have to do.
I'm not predicting any issues
Good.
with it.
Okay.
It'll fold right into what we're doing with Veeam, so
Okay.
it should be pretty transparent to us.
Cool, thanks.
Now the trick is One thing I did think of is, and it's a question for me and James Trotha over at Catalyst, is do we want to turn around and build 2 VMs? Do we want to build a certification VM? And then do we want to have a production VM? Because they may want to turn around, build this, pound out the database. Oh, we screwed something up and we messed it up. Considering we don't know what the integrity of the data looks like, that's a pretty good chance they're going to turn around and do it. And you much rather turn around and do your database restores on the certification test system than you want to turn around and do it on the real system. I don't know if they'll allow us to turn around under one license, have both a test and a production, or if we have to buy 2 licenses.
Well, unless it's changed. It was always charged by number of parcels. It didn't matter how many databases you have, and it doesn't matter how many users, based on the size of the municipality, unless they've changed it last 2 years.
That was one of my questions for him today that has gone unanswered. Is to me it would make sense to, as they're putting this all together and assembling a database, that they do it on a test system before we say, all right, this is the live system.
So, as you're going through this and having heard the history of vendor to software, and all that can go wrong with all those things that happen, it sounds like there's another one in your future, no matter what, with this Catalyst end-of-lifing market drive software.
They're pushing it Patriot Properties, which I believe was built in
Massachusetts, for Massachusetts.
And it's really not taken off. It is a cloud-based software program. Their onboarding for Waukesha was extremely expensive to turn around and convert with it. And it's really not as good a software right now as what the older market drive is. So they would have to make significant changes for Patriot Properties to start getting people to convert over it. Now they can say, all right, we're no longer stopping this product, it's end of sale, and now we're going to put an end of life onto it, and then everyone has to turn around and convert to Patriot Properties. Great. That software has to be as good as Market Drive is, or no one's going to turn around and do it. And that's where they're going to be in. They got a lot. Well, they can.
You've been there before, though. You've been there before with various other software packages that you've converted to it. It's not quite ready. It's the next version. It's the latest upgrade. It's their next.
A Catalyst has a company in Menominee Falls. They bought Market Drive. They bought GPS. Yes, I'm sorry. They also bought a company called Groder Appraisal, who's located in Menominee Falls. Groder Appraisal is like Accurate Appraisal. They do their contract assessor in Southeast Wisconsin. That company runs on Market Drive, and they don't even use it. And so it's going to take a while. That would be the first company that would jump. And
Milwaukee County also uses LandApp. They're also some leverage.
Are the developers still around for this? When they bought it, did they say goodbye to the development team?
Some, yes. How many of their foundational developers are there? I don't know.
That would be me. Full disclosure, I was their foundation. I worked on that product for 25 years.
So if something happens where it's incompatible with .NET or Windows clients, or I don't know that you Windows client or Edge client or anything, but something with Windows, have people fix it.
We have a
They
support.
call you up.
We have a support maintenance contract with them, so they do have to turn around and fix it under support
I don't have
maintenance.
the source code to if I wanted to.
I understand.
Right? But they do have people.
You're talking into a
That
microphone.
would be a conflict of interest.
I don't have the source code, so I can't fix it for you anyway. But it's been around for a long time, 5 years, and it's they want to replace it with Patriot. There's no question about that. And our contract with the successor goes for 3 years, and after that 3 years is up, you can decide to go with a different assessor. And this is the problem you have when you go to your assessor and you switch, and Tyler uses Tyler, and Accurate uses Prolorum, and Forward now uses Market Drive, and who's the next person going to? What software is the next person going to use? I mean, this is the world we live in. Until the state can produce a decent software product that anybody can use. We're always at the mercy of this switch from here to switch to here to switch from here. It's not ideal at all.
So one of the things I always tell my customers, you should have a divorce clause in your contract. That is, what happens when we don't like you anymore, the end of your contract, and instead of having to argue with your previous assessor, who's maybe not going to give you all the data in the format you want, RDBMS, you have it written in the contract, and then less quibble. You have that with Catalyst?
What you're seeing there is what was approved by the Common Council. So if we followed the boilerplate, we would have had it, but it wasn't done. And that is the contract that was actually signed for it. So I would say no, marriage is easy, divorce is messy. It is not in there. So it would be difficult turning around and divorcing them and moving to a different software company, because that has not been specified. But at least we turn around and have our data localized, unlike other places where it was up in the cloud. Now how are you going to get your data back when it's sitting there up in the cloud? Here at least we know we have the data.
Well, you might have the data, but it might be locked in an RDBMS, which is part, the schema is their schema, and licensed part of the software, in which case you don't have access to it, technically. That doesn't mean anything. The schema that that this company provides with their software is a part of the software.
Correct.
So, unless it's expressly
if
written,
a person
you're
knows the
not supposed to
database schema,
go into
and the
SQL Server
database
and
is
dump
not
this.
overly extremely complicated for it, if it's a fairly streamlined schema on it, it doesn't make that much of a difference, because you're just going to be able to figure out what the tables are and the
There's
fields
also
and the constraints.
There is also there's a production database which has all the normalized coded data to make it efficient. There's also a data warehouse that you generate from the production database by touching a button, and so that database is denormalized and decoded and easy to read by humans, and that is licensed to hook up to a website and display the data, right? Or hook it up to the GIS system and use it for what you want. So the license does include the ability to use that data warehouse for other things. City West Dallas uses it extensively in a lot of their integration with their other systems.
Now, everything you just said also applies to LandNav, and we're in the same boat with that. Exact same, but we can't do anything with it because it's forced by Milwaukee County. And they're actually the person that does the licensing of the software for it, but yet our data isn't stored in that land post. So that's also a place where that could get messy.
It really would be better if we had an alternative, but we don't.
I got one question. When do we expect to get a database we can use from Accurate Assessment?
Boy, from Accurate?
Yeah. Because you said
Might go to court.
Might go to court. They gave us PDFs.
solid PDFs.
PDFs.
PDFs. So you have a property record card for each and every single property that basically says, here's your property and the valuation and the rooms that you have on it. All of that was in PDF. They gave us thousands of PDFs for that. And then they did some table dumps and then put it in Excel. That's what they gave us.
So this is going to be an entirely manual conversion process?
I hope I hope they have something like Monarch where they can turn around and go into the PDF and take non-structured data and put it into structured.
What about the Tyler data?
I would hope someone has a tool to turn around and do that.
Like a way to make a
It says in several places talking about using Tyler data and Accurate data. Is there really a...
Well, they have to go back 5 years. So
No, they're only going back, what I heard was only going back 5 years to pull data out of LandNav. So what you have is you have an assessment roll and you have a tax roll. Tax roll is what LandNav is. So they're going back 5 years and grabbing a tax roll, which would just basically say, my property, here's my address, here's my legal description, here's my...
I have
right?
the database for Tyler here. on a virtual machine. It's information as well. It's in 8 tables. It's not exactly complex. But I have the data going all from Tyler started all the way to 2022. I have that here if it is needed as part of this. So if we do not get the information from Accurate and we have to go to Plan B or C, that would be start your baseline. The information last from Tyler.
But the contract says they're only going to convert 1 year of data for the 28 grand that they're charging us for, and so.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we can't import it later, if we so desire.
Okay.
Means their conversion services are only converting 1 year's worth of data. The latest assessment roll doesn't necessarily mean we can't or the assessor can't turn around and import more data later on. It's found to be more accurate.
Okay, and you said, I think Waukesha chose to go with Patriot,
Correct.
and that it was a costly conversion. Did they convert from Market Drive, or they convert from some other thing?
I know they converted to
from
it.
a product called Vision,
Okay.
and they wanted to purchase Market Drive, but they were told no.
Because again, had we seen this contract before, in addition to the divorce clause, I would have recommended that we try to pre-negotiate what that conversion to Patriot will be, or not to exceed, or whatever it might be, at this point. Because now they got you. And so when they put the gun to everybody's head and say, need a little more revenue this year, we're going to have to charge everybody $30,000, and we're going to put you on Patriot. And that's just for the conversion. And then you have to relicense the software? Is that all new software that doesn't come with what you're already paying? I don't know. I mean, unless that's all spelled out, you got a lot of, you got red flag, you got at least one big red flag here.
So I saw several when I was looking through the contract for it, but there's one of these things. This is what was approved at this point. It's
that's
now
totally unacceptable. I mean, it is what it is. Is that really where we're going to be standing? It is what it is.
I don't run the city.
You know,
I run the IT
think
department. I don't run the
council should
city.
be aware that there's at least a couple of people on the commission who think that this contract was not ready for signature.
Yeah, I don't think I could support a motion, not this motion. Just for that very sake, that I think had we seen this prior, we would have given you some good feedback. Hopefully, you would have been able to make some way with that, and then we could have moved forward. And if the city council / mayor, whatever, sees no value in the technology commission or doesn't reinforce with the departments, you got to get your stuff in front of the technology commission, and they meet, last Wednesday of the month. Then, why are we here? This is a rubber stamp. This is the definition of a rubber stamp.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
Well, and I wanted, if you're done,
Sure.
for me, I wanted to add too. I would welcome you each to come to the Common Council meeting Tuesday and speak during the citizen comment period to share your input, reviews, and address the administrator and the mayor and full council with your thoughts and so forth. I think they would be appreciated. And going forward, not that we will likely come across anything like this again, but just as a reminder for us all, self-included, we probably could have called a special meeting for technology. That's done in many other boards and commissions, but I think this all kind of happened rather quickly, to my understanding. The time may not have even allowed for that.
Well,
you've
in
known
a
it was
perfect
happening
world,
since December.
if we would redo this, we should have turned around and did the approval tonight, the review tonight, maybe go back to the vendor, and then potentially bring it up to the Common Council on March 15th or 19th on it. But the desire was to turn around and get the assessor onboarded as quickly as possible by the purchasing of the software for it. And they could not even get an assignment, a contract assigned with the assessor unless we actually had a guarantee of the purchase. That was the driving force behind the schedule. I wasn't a fan of it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, this wasn't, but from what I know about it, this was not a slight on the technology. This was, they were between a rock and a hard spot, and
Yeah.
they had us over a barrel, and there was not a darn thing we could do about it.
Yeah, but you know, the way I see that is, it's like, when you come up to a yellow light, do you make a decision to speed up to beat the yellow? Are you necessarily breaking the law? Not necessarily. Does your risk increase? Of course it does. That's what we're doing here.
Right, Dale, but the Catalyst, this company that owns this, they have monopoly. And clearly,
They don't have a
They have a monopoly
signing
on the market, but
contracts.
they don't have a monopoly on the contract with us.
Right.
And we can negotiate with them, anything.
my knowledge of this problem was that they had us over a barrel, and that we had no leverage. Because they could just tell us to go pound salt. we
And
would
I
have no
think that
salt.
should also be stated too. We were going to try to just get the software for them, and we would do the data conversion services, and they denied and refused to sell us the software. And this was the only way, signing this contract in this format, that we could then turn around and get them to actually sell us the software, because the software is supposed to be end of life, and they are not supposed to be selling it anymore for it. So there was another reason why we don't have that much leverage in a contract negotiation as one would normally have for it, because the software we're purchasing is considered end of life off of it, and there's no other competitor that we can immediately go to that has a product as good as what they are trying to turn around and sell us. So we do realize, yes, this is a product that we have to purchase. The contract is not a great contract at all. There's plenty of omissions and errors and things that could have been
And maybe,
improved upon prior to bringing it and getting a vote.
maybe the problem is even earlier than that, when Forward,
Forward appraisal.
when they said, you must use this software and only this software, and you found out it was end of life, maybe you shouldn't use Forward.
I can speak to that too. We had three choices: Forward Appraisal, Associated Appraisal, and Tyler Technology. But those are the only three companies that bid on our RFP for new services. And honestly, Forward Appraisal and the other Associated Appraisal both are use Market Drive. And they were expecting, I know both companies were expecting, do business as usual with Catalyst, right? So business as usual is, you're a contract assessor, you go out and get a new job for a new community, you call up Catalyst and say, I just got a job for this community XYZ, please give me the license to do the stuff. And then usually it's like, okay, here you go, here's the license, it's easy peasy, right? So Forward Appraisal was expecting to put the cost of the software and everything in their contract. In fact, they did. And then they called up Catalyst and said, can I have my software? I'm now the new assessor at the city of Franklin. And they said, we aren't selling it to you. But we'll sell it to the city of Franklin. So this is a company which is abusing their monopoly over the software, and it's not Forward Appraisal's fault that they assumed that it was business as usual. There was no. I talked to them. There was no indication in when they did the RFP. They said to Catalyst, "We're gonna do this bid on this city of Franklin, and is there anything we have to know?" No, they gave no warning that anything was different in November. So they put their response to our RFP in, and then we're shocked to learn that, well, wait a minute, what do you mean you're not going to sell me the software? That doesn't make any sense, right? So this situation that we're in and they're in is really the result of Catalyst flexing their muscles and using their leverage, and it's really unfortunate.
That doesn't
All
mean
around.
we have to be lands being led to the slaughter. There are things we could have done ahead of time to make sure that we at least had a good contract going forward. We didn't do that. The story. So now we have what we have. We have to move forward the best way we can, and that's it. And I hope that the Common Council people on the Common Council read the minutes from the commissions so they understand what happened and how we view this, or how at least a couple of us view this.
Dale, I don't think anybody's happy with it.
This is also one reason why you have the process of it goes to the commission, they approve it, make a motion to recommend, make changes or recommendation of changes to it even before the Common Council sees it. And unfortunately, that process was not followed, and I'll take some blame on that too. I could have gave a lot more pushback on it, even though I am late in getting involved in here. I got involved when suddenly they said no to the software sale, and Jim, is there any way you can turn around and put this together again? And
Well, I think
we did not follow process to
Right.
get it approved.
Didn't follow process.
More pushback should have been done on that. I probably should have exerted more political influence on doing it, but there is a good amount of pressure to turn around and get things moving as quickly as you possibly can because of deadline.
So
And it's just really unfortunate
It
that
is.
when you look at this body of people here and the number of years of experience that they encompass, that was ignored. Maybe not intentionally, but it was ignored for expediency's sake. It flies in the face of the people who are spending their time here.
you know, when I last worked, I'd have to go to an attorney, one of many attorneys, to get a contract approved. And they would give me a notice of contract approval, which was my ticket to get it signed by the person who could sign it. And they would often point out risks. This isn't there, this isn't there. The business, me, has decided they can live with this risk. And that's what should be going to the Common Council. So let's say we followed the process. And to Andy's point, we're in a rock and a hard place. And these are the risks. These are the major risks that the Technology Commission has pointed out that we were not able to overcome in this contract. We are signing this knowing that we have black holes here, here, and here. Then the Common Council knows that. They know what risks they're signing up for. And they can either direct the business department, the assessor's office, to rethink this, or they can, get their attorney to pull levers. But now, you could come back in a year and they could say, yeah, everybody's got to go to Patriot, and it's another $200,000 in software and services. And the Common Council is going to be like, we just approved that. What's the deal? And so that's the thing is they have to know what the risks are as well. When you can't get over a certain hurdle because they got you by the back here.
And the other thing, to your point, is that the assessment cycle starts on about August 1st. Your border review finishes up in June and July. The assessor turns their attention to the next year's work on August the 1st. So your assessment contracts need to end on August the 1st, so that when you hire a new assessor, the new assessor is taking over at the beginning of the assessment, right? So I don't know why that was never corrected. We've had it at Tyler's contract ended in December 31st, the calendar year. That makes no sense. Accurate picked up. They started the 1st of January. They worked for 2 years, calendar years. That makes no sense. So now we're bringing on a new assessor. What, in February? That means that's 5 months have got 5 months of work that an assessor done in a year has already elapsed, and they're starting 5 months behind schedule. That's just, and so when this kind of stuff comes up, you have less options because we have to have a statutory assessor, and they've got to catch up from 5 months of work, and so we're over a barrel. And yeah, we can go to court and argue with them about whether they're abusing their monopoly or whatever, but there's no time for that anymore because so I hope that the assessment contract gets fixed and it ends on July 31st, not December 31st. So we don't find ourselves in this situation.
That's not in our purview. I agree with you, but I don't know.
Yes. Deal with it. So I have one other question to follow up on one thing that Greg was saying. Who from the city of Franklin reviewed that contract? I brought this up before when we signed other contracts.
We have a problem, I would say, a lot. That just the director of IT, but just from what I have seen coming in front of the Common Council, there's a lot of contracts there that it is a vendor contract. It may or may not have even passed by Jesse, but yet it's still turning around and being approved. They don't do contract management very well as a city, and we do not do project management very well as a city. That's areas of definite improvement on. And in this case, you could be looking at operational failure of the city if we do not have an assessment role that is accurate. By August, you cannot make a budget. You don't know what the revenue is going to be, and it takes them 6 months to do budgets, that you don't know what your anticipated tax revenue is going to be without an accurate assessment role to run with. And then you start running into problems of, all right, now we have just turned around and under budgeted or over budgeted, and we may be overcharging taxes on people as well. So that there is some fear also of operational failure unless this problem is fixed. And that also is contributing a little bit to the issue. We don't see too many problems coming up to the Technology Commission of, if we don't do it, the city stops running. This is one of them. And it's unfortunate that the assessment office has been royally mismanaged for the last 2 years at this, that we got now to this state. But we are now at a state of this has to get fixed, or we may suddenly find large property shareholders sitting here taking us to court. A lot of people, we now have more people refuting their assessment and their tax evaluations now than in the history of the city of Franklin. That is a fact. And we've had a really bad assessor and got stung royally off of this. And now we have to try to do everything that we possibly can expediently to fix it in order to keep operations.
Any more discussion on this item? Any motions to make? Because it doesn't sound like we have a whole lot.
Technically, we don't need to make a motion to recommend unless you desire to put it on the record for it, for the simple fact that it's already been approved by the Common Council.
Anybody want to make a motion of any kind? That one or?
Any viewpoints from the old woman?
Can't make a motion to recommend.
Oh, you just said a motion's not needed.
It isn't. It isn't.
Okay. We'll move to the next item, which is an item that is a carryover from past meeting. We have a few more people here than we did last time, and that's why we held it over. And that was just sort of finally blessing the strategic technology plan. As you know, over the past year and a half, this had been updated, and so the director has made all of the changes, and we wanted to make sure that those people, some of those people who were involved in the development of the technology plan, would be able to opine, and if there's any discussion or changes that we should think about, now's the time. Otherwise, we'll kind of put this one in
So I have something.
gold.
So I read
Yes.
through this whole plan,
Yes.
and the one thing that I think, it's evolutionary, right? There's a lot of time that went into this plan. You can tell a lot of thought went into this plan. There's a lot of substance here. So thinking about how to improve, make an evolutionary improvement here, I think one thing that I would do is we need to give the council some way to look at these objectives, goals, right? We need some way to measure these goals and tell the council, okay, we've got these 5 goals, and here's how far we are from meeting our goal on goal number 1. Here's how far we are on goal number 2, goal number 3, goal number 4, because the council reading all this stuff, they don't really know. It's going to be hard for them to get their brain around it. And so they can say, yeah, that sounds good, but how far are we? How much resource needs to go in to goal number 3 to get goal number 3 from 10% to 80% there, right? They don't even know how far we are on each of these things, because you're asking them effectively to, have resources spent on it, whether it's existing resources that are spending here instead of something else, or additional resources. You're saying, hey, this is important. And, if we're 95% of the way there, they're going to be like, yeah, we got more important things. But if we're 5% of the way there, then it's like, well, how important is this in relation to something else we're asking for resources on? So having a measurable, somehow out of this, getting some way to measure and convey how far are we to meeting our objectives, be the next evolution.
I think we have part of that in the risk meeting.
Awesome.
Part of it.
Part of it.
Awesome.
That can be
not the
definitely-
percent complete, but
No, but you
the item, its priority.
So just got to figure out how somebody to measure it. How do
Yeah,
you tell the council we're
Like
70%?
I read it down just like what he said, is use kind of like the risk watch matrix, a similar format to that, where I can decompose these goals and objectives to it and start looking at putting timelines and estimations. Some of them can easily be done a lot quicker than others, and some of them are going to take a while to turn around and do it. And then some objectives are pretty much beginning to spell out some standard of what we have as well for it. But yeah, it could easily be put into a similar format for that for tracking purposes, or because that always has been the problem. When I first was giving this to Mark Roberta, first thing I looked at when they put their first year and second year, it's like, boy, we really missed that by years. It's like, you guys haven't even started on it, and you're supposed to do it year 1, but here it is year 7 yet, and you haven't even started. And yeah, there is a lot of that.
Well, I'm not even saying how much resources are required or necessarily how long it's going to take. I'm just saying, are we there? It's like if you were to run I always give this example. If you're going to do a fundraiser, right? What's the first thing everybody does when they do a fundraiser? They make some kind of chart that you stick on the wall that says, here's where we are now and here's where we want to be, right? There's some measurable goal. And so it's, of course, overly simplistic because you measure, the goal is dollars are easy to measure, right? But nonetheless, whatever it is that you're doing, you've got to have some way to measure, are we there yet? When do we know we've met our goal? And then if you can measure if you're there yet, you can measure where you're at right now, and you can see how far we have to go.
And that's easy enough to do with this plan because it has been decomposed eventually down to individual tasks.
Yeah.
For that, you have an overarching goal, and then you have eventually get down to objectives and tasks for it. And you can do the tracking of tasks. You don't have to necessarily do the tracking of the archetype goal, but you should be able to start tracking your tasks for each goal and say, how for this goal, how far are we? And that's very valid.
I think, though, given what you're saying, Andy, and who the audience is, to me, the one-page executive scorecard comes to mind, right? Where they can see yellow, green, red very quickly. I don't think they need to get into like a Microsoft project level of detail, Jim, but a one-pager.
Oh, for sure. Something you can graphically show them. Goal number 1.
And within
here we
20
are.
seconds, they have an idea.
Exactly. Arm's length.
And then,
Yeah.
Jim, you have all the supporting document and all the detail to support that scorecard. But I think in order for them to see where we're at very quickly, to be able to digest it and understand it, a one-pager is definitely the way to go in my opinion.
If you have one page and you have 10 goals, you got 10 graphs, right? And it's like goal number 1, here's where 50% of the way. Goal number 2, we haven't even started. Goal number 3, hey, we're making a lot of progress on that one. I mean, just something like one page.
Yeah,
One page is
I agree with that. 100%. It's like Drucker 101, right? You can't manage what you can't measure.
Right.
So this identifies what to measure, right? That's as far as it went, what to measure. And then we have the further supporting details. So Yes, step 2 is definitely putting into place a mechanism that allows us to
And we will be
translate the
trailblazing.
measurements into something that people understand.
That I hate to say it, to my knowledge, this is the only department that actually has gotten a strategic plan of what they want to turn around and do with their departments and the directions they actually want to turn around and take it. No one else is doing this. So I'm hoping that if we do this and do a good job of it, and with the tracking, others will begin to follow and like measure.
They're probably the only department that does a risk matrix. Well,
One would think the police and fire would be doing it, but they got other reports.
so Andy, have you seen the risk matrix yet?
Was it in here?
No,
I read the whole thing.
Oh,
No, I
Big
didn't.
spreadsheet.
I don't remember that. No, I haven't
It's,
seen it.
it's like ultra super secret.
Okay, no, I haven't seen it.
So maybe we should discuss that next time.
No.
That or once we turn around and flip out the firewalls and then go over to our new LAN, because we'll then be doing a new penetration testing on it. I might be able to do one before we do our penetration test, do our penetration tests. Some of the things maybe get added to it with the penetration tests once we turn around and get done with the firewalls.
I'm sorry, I missed something. How did we get onto penetration firewalls?
You wanted to have an update to the risk matrix?
I was talking about an update to the risk matrix.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was
Any other discussion or comments about the strategic technology plan? Otherwise,
Motion to approve it? Be just as simple as a motion to
okay.
approve.
Anybody want to?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we approve, having gone through many iterations of this technology plan over the years.
All right, we'll give Dale the honor of the
I
motion.
would like to make a motion that
Do we have a
that
second?
Second. That the IT commission
Andy's got the
formally,
second.
accepts.
All those in favor say aye.
I
Any opposed? Thank you.
much blood, sweat, and tears on this one.
8 years of work.
Yep.
And it's getting better.
Next item on our agenda is a technical issues review.
Lots of stuff. You can tell I'm getting really, really, really tired. Been putting in many hours here. The police department citation system, TRAX, will soon be moving to a completely cloud-based system that has both the application and database supported by the Department of Transportation web portal. The state is encouraging municipalities to perform the migration in 2024 as the legacy on-premise system is being slated for retirement. The current database is running on a Microsoft SQL 2014 server that is also nearing obsolescence. It is uncertain at this point how form editing of citations will be performed and how to push the newly created forms down to the local workstations. It is expected that the synchronization process will be changed and editing can be done online instead of offline. TRAX will be moving to the cloud. That's a conversation to be had on Friday. The city is soliciting bids for outside penetration tests, similar to the study that was performed 2 years ago by Foresight. The fiber optic WAN project is requiring significant changes to outside routing with SD-WAN, hence firewalls have been incorporated into the project. Once all firewalls have been deployed, policies updated, and new dynamic routing implemented, an outside perimeter penetration test is being internally mandated. This will confirm that the TPX, the vendor who is supporting the firewalls, has performed due diligence in porting everything from the Palo Alto firewalls over to the Fortinet firewalls. If there is available funding, the city might also opt for a limited internal penetration test as well. IT is requiring the penetration test be performed by a completely different company than the firm building and supporting the firewalls. That's logical. The city is researching two-factor authentication mechanisms that can be realistically implemented either by a subset or all users. Current requirements is two-factor authentication must be used for logging into email within Office 365 and ProPhoenix RMS at the police department. It is currently believed that the union rules require employees to be provided with 2 FA hard tokens. Otherwise, the city must provide cell phones if a mobile app architecture is chosen. This is expected that the Office 365 and email migration will be performed after Windows 12 is released. So we'll be looking at pushing this off somewhere around in November or December. We will be doing it as part of an upgrade to the desktop PCs, and we'll be pushing out Office 365. That's when we'll be going with email migration, and that is when we would be implementing 2FA tokens on there. We have lots of questions on it.
Are you looking at any other Microsoft Cloud services at that time, or just email to start and maybe looking in the future?
Depends on what we can afford, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a budget constraint on that, but we will be looking at minimally 80 in the cloud. And then director's notes and IT operations. Ring Central phone system deployments using Polycom 350 and E500 desktop phones is currently underway in all offices. Phase 1 has been completed, where Fire Station 1, 2, 3, DPW, and Sewer and Water are all currently on voice-over IP phones. AT&T has ported all FlexReach, POTS, and Centrix DIDs over to the cloud. Will port all over to the cloud. Phase 2 will involve porting all DIDs and extensions for City Hall and the public library. Phase 3 will finalize the project with the installation of phones at the police department. The last phase will prove to be the most technically challenging. It should be noted that 5 PBX systems will be replaced by the Ring Central migration. There are a lot of moving parts with that one. Contracts are being finalized for the implementation of Ring Clone in the Ring Central Cloud for all SMS and text message archiving. The Ring Central desktop and mobile app has the capability to allow employee and employee text messages in addition to text messages to an SMS number. These messages are considered a public record and must be journalized for an indefinite period of time. This is similar to email. Once all technology is in place, city policy will be changed to require employees to use the Ring Central app for all mobile phone calls and text messages. Employees will be restricted from using local device or third-party apps for text messages. Open Records request compliance was a major reason why voice-over IP cloud-based services was selected over using traditional local phone services for communication. Call logging and tracing will also be available from within the cloud. TPX has begun the process for deploying new Fortinet firewalls out to all city offices. This will include City Hall, Police Department, Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, Fire Station 3, DPW, Water, Library, and the Franklin School District ECC building. On 2/26, a pair of clusters was installed at City Hall and remote access was given to the system on the fiber ring, so the firewalls could be set up and provisioned with new configurations and policies. Note, they are not on the internal network. The devices will be connected to the Ring patch panels, confirming connectivity to the Ring. Working with the new patch panels will be a moderate technical challenge. We are currently waiting on additional transceivers to ship in order to bring more offices into the Ring. It should be noted that this is a fully independent network that has no direct impact on the existing City of Franklin WAN. And with that, a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, is being created for the authorization of co-location of equipment. The development of the final physical architecture requires that network equipment and firewalls be installed in the Franklin School District ECC building. This has to be approved by both the Franklin School District Board and the City of Franklin Common Council. It is anticipated that a wall-mounted cabinet, IDF, will be deployed at the School District ECC building. This will house dual firewalls, hard H8 switches, WISCnet routers, 2 UPSs, and an environmental monitor. Cabling will need to go from the wall rack over to the standalone online rack where the WISCnet fiber patch panels are currently located. I just got confirmation just before I came here tonight that it still hasn't passed the legal review, so I was hoping maybe to get this to the Common Council by 3/5, but it looks like it's not going to make it for that meeting. So some of the delay in rolling out our firewalls may be attributed to legal issues, getting that approved before we can actually install equipment over at the school district's data center.
Any specific physical security requirements?
It'll the ECC, yeah, it'll be in their data center. We have to accept all of their agreements. We have to have insurance on it. We have to follow their data center agreements of letting them in, and our rack is also going to turn around and be physically locked with a key.
That's
So
basically-
no one can get into our rack without the key.
But no need for an extra cage around it or anything, you don't think?
No, that's safe enough. I mean, it's a district building. It's not like in the high school where the kids are monkeying around with it.
Tim, do you remember what the Fortinet equipment is?
100 Fs for the smaller offices, and then 200 Fs for the larger ones. Any questions? Next.
Well, I must say that's the first time in a long time that I've heard a director's report, IT project that has included some calamity, problem, hiccup. You know, the water was leaking or something. It's amazing. That's great.
A lot of stuff going on right now. It's just like
A lot of stuff going on.
tons of stuff.
Nothing. Sky isn't falling at the moment. We'll wait till next month. Okay. Our future agenda item sandbox. We've got 3 things there. We already talked about the risk matrix as potentially something we bring up in next meeting or near-term meeting. Any other items that we should think about adding to that list?
Yeah, probably we should put on the agenda what we had been talking about in terms of developing some sort of measurement device for the
Okay.
planning.
Strat plan dashboard.
Strap plan, you said?
Strat.
Strategic plan.
Strategic.
Dashboard. Okay, good one. Anything else?
We'll still be bringing in probably, I'm getting details of it, of a new document management system with Konica Minolta. Document scanning, so we'll probably be reviewing that coming up.
Okay. Our next meeting date is last Wednesday of March, 6 p.m., same place. And that's it. Any motions for adjournment?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
All those in motions?
second.
Steele seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night.